So let's talk a little bit about cause and effect, which is the fundamental law that governs human action. So the simplest and most instructive example of this is the phenomenon of fire. So if you put your hand in the fire, you get burnt, and so the in this case the cause is the action of putting your hand into the fire, and the effect is the burn that you get out of that action. So if you put your hand into the fire, you'll learn that putting your hand into the fire hurts, and that creates that basically gives rise to the learning that fire hurts, and we learn to not put our hand into the fire. So our conditioning is basically, so the process of learning that you should not put your hand into the fire if you don't want to suffer is a form of conditioning. You get conditioned by your experiences. You get conditioned by the law of cause and effect. If you do the correct things, you experience pleasure, and if you do the wrong things, you experience pain. If you jump off the third floor, you'll get hurt. You put your hand into the fire, you'll get hurt. You talk rudely to people, you're likely to experience pain out of the response that you get from your rudeness. So a series of experiences of pain and pleasure is what leads to our conditioning and learning, and the tendencies of our actions basically. And pain and pleasure are inextricably linked to the law of cause and effect. If you create the right causes, you experience the effects of pleasure, and if you perform the wrong actions, you experience pain basically. So cause and effect is what governs our actions. Logic is basically the mental construct which enables us to deal with cause and effect. We work because we want the money that comes out of the work. The cause is the work that we put in, and the effect is the money that we get. And on the other hand, if you don't work, you don't get money. So the cause is the non-action performed by you, or the work that you have not put in. That is the cause, and the effect is the absence of results that is a consequence of not putting in work. So the whole process of learning basically is the process of coming to terms with the law of cause and effect. So cause and effect is basically based in time. Cause is event 1 and effect is event 2. If you look at it in terms of time, the earlier event is the cause and the later event is the effect, typically. So enlightenment is basically the transcendence of cause and effect, in which, so what is meant by this is that you're no longer bound to the law of cause and effect if you are in a state of perception of the absolute truth, which is here and now. Cause and effect is the master of your actions. It is the boss, basically, of your journey through life. It is the fundamental law which directs your journey through life. But in a state of enlightenment, which is here and now, which is just conscious connection with the here and now, you transcend the law of cause and effect, which means that that which is timeless, that which is not subject to duality, that which is ever present regardless of what time you are considering, that which is present during the cause, the sparking of the action, which is the cause, and the experiencing of the effect, which is the consequence. That which is present during both of these is the absolute truth or consciousness, which appears as all the forms that constitute the experience of any cause and effect relationship that you go through. So, if you're not in a state of perception of the absolute truth, in other words, if you're identified with the ego, you are bound to cause and effect. It's a state of bondage. But being in the now is freedom from cause and effect, freedom from karma, because karma basically means cause and effect. So, the eternal cycle of action and consequence, which is what we refer to as karma, is transcended in the now. And freedom from karma is freedom from suffering. Suffering is basically the phenomenon of unrest or restlessness experienced by the constant striving away from pain and constant striving towards pleasure, which is governed by the law of cause and effect. So, freedom or liberation or moksha or enlightenment is freedom from karma. The suffering that you experience is the result of your past actions. For example, if you fail in a romantic relationship, that's due to your imperfections, which are a fundamental property of any individual form in the cosmos. Every individual form in the cosmos is imperfect because it is not any other form, any form which is not that form. So, for example, I cannot be John Petrucci or Roger Federer because I'm a form at the level of form. I'm separate from John Petrucci and Roger Federer, and I have a different skill set from John Petrucci and Roger Federer. But the absolute truth is appearing as both John Petrucci and Roger Federer, so it can play guitar at the level of John Petrucci and tennis at the level of Roger Federer. So attachment to the specific individuated form that you are leads to bondage to cause and effect because you are in the state of fear and desire and in the state of pursuit of pleasure and avoidance of pain, and pleasure and pain are experienced in accordance with the law of cause and effect. So as long as you impose limitations upon yourself, you will depend upon the nature of what you're experiencing, the specific form of what you're experiencing for your happiness, and that invariably keeps you bound to conflict and suffering and karma, which is your own karma. So the fundamental karma is the belief in being a separate identity, a separate entity from consciousness or the cosmos. And the working out of your karma is what you must do in order to attain freedom, which means that you have to transcend karma in order to attain freedom. Transcend cause and effect, transcend duality. Cause and effect is basically duality or time. Cause is the event, the first event in the temporal sequence of events that you experience, and effect is the second event in the temporal sequence of events that you experience. So we'll talk a little more about this in future videos.